Curious and compassionate, Louise Jett, she, her, is an ethical humanist, media specialist, graphic designer, writer, and artist. In short, Louise is an educator, community organizer, and storyteller who strives to approach challenges with optimism and enthusiasm. She is an American Ethical Union certified professional clergy leader, and she's truly inspired by people who are dedicated to empowering and caring for others. Louise worked as a professor for 12 years and has experience facilitating conversations and Restorative Justice Community Circles. Love that. She earned her Associate of Applied Science and Graphic Design and Associate of Arts from Lewis and Clark Community College. And I want to thank you so much for sharing with me the photos this morning of the artwork, the sculptures on that campus. How wonderful for your students to live and study and learn with all that beautiful artwork. Her BS in Organizational Leadership from Greenville University, where she received a full scholarship, and Masters of Education from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign in Education Policy, Organizational, and Leadership. I could go on and on. You are just such, you're so accomplished. And so it's just wonderful to have you here. I've enjoyed getting to know you more as we've been spending time together. And so please come on up, and we will now settle in for Rebels with a Cause, Humanist Lessons from Star Wars. And I'm going to take my stuff
out. Okay, is this good? I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for the music. And Anne has been such a wonderful host. Just thank you all for welcoming me here. I feel so welcomed. Let me share my screen here. There we go. And I'm just gonna pull my notes up. Okay. So before we begin our journey to a galaxy far, far away, I do want to take a moment to be present in this one, to breathe in courage and exhale distraction, to remember that we are here not by chance, but by choice. We gather in community, guided not by dogma, but by dignity, rooted in reason, lifted by compassion, and fueled by the hope that together we can do better. May we listen with open minds, speak with open hearts, and leave this space with a deeper sense of our shared humanity. And good morning. May the 4th be with you. Yes, it's a little nerdy, but today is more than just a pun for fans of Star Wars. It's an opportunity to ask a really important question. What can a galaxy far, far away teach us about ethics, justice, and resistance right here in our own world? So as I said in the description, if you've never seen a single Star Wars film, I promise you're in the right place. This talk is about how we rise up together, whether we're wielding lightsabers or protest signs, megaphones, or moral clarity. In other words, today is about what it means to be a rebel with a cause. Let's start with a simpler truth. Stories matter. They're how we make sense of the world. They shape our values, they give us language for the struggle, and they inspire us to act. Even stories that seem silly or fantastical, like space battling droids, can speak to something deeply human. And Star Wars is a modern myth. It's not just about good versus evil. It's about resistance versus empire. It's about flawed individuals banding together to challenge power and reclaim their agency. Something humanists and we in ethical culture do often. And humanism is a part of our stories. It's the part that says we don't need divine intervention to create meaning or do good, that we have each other, and that's enough. We have our reason. We have our compassion, our sense of justice. And together, we can change the world. I truly believe we can. Oh, it's not changing my slides. Hold on. Oh, wonder why that happened. Okay. Well, you missed a slide. Technology. Here, I'll just show you real quick. No. Okay. I don't know why that wasn't. Okay. Okay. So, what is the Force? Let's start there. In Star Wars, okay. In Star Wars, the Force is described as a mystical energy field that binds everything together. It's invisible, but it's ever present, and it's a source of power that flows through all living things. It evokes a deep sense of interconnection and balance, and it can be channeled toward healing, harmony, or destruction. So whether it's used for good, for the light side, or for domination, the dark side, it demands awareness, belief, and intention. The Force at its heart is a metaphor for our relationship with the world and each other. As humanists, we don't believe in magic powers, but we do believe in interconnectedness. To me, the Force is a metaphor for shared humanity, that intangible yet undeniable sense that we are all in this together, that our choices ripple outward, that our lives are entangled. Use a little chat GPT to put Felix Adler in the Star Wars universe. So, as fantastic as it may be, the Force reminds me of Felix Adler. So, Felix Adler had this concept of the ethical manifold. It offers this similarly powerful vision. It's rooted not in fantasy, but in ethical philosophy. Adler proposed that the universe is not just a backdrop for human action, but it is in some sense woven from human worth. That the fabric of the universe is woven from human worth. I think that is so beautiful. And every person's dignity contributes to this larger ethical fabric. His idea of the ethical manifold emphasizes our interdependence, the inherent value of every individual, and the moral consequences of our choices. It's a call to recognize that our actions reverberate within a shared human experience and to act accordingly. The ethical action part is the strongest part of our movement. Though the Force and the ethical manifold arise from different traditions, one cinematic and the other philosophical, both the Force and the ethical manifold invite us to imagine ourselves as a part of something greater. Not something magical, but something meaningful. Both suggest that we are not isolated human beings, but participants in a universe of shared consequence. And both remind us that how we use our power, whether technological, political, emotional, or moral, how we use that power matters deeply. We can build or destroy, we can heal or we can harm. What matters most is how we treat each other. To live ethically, like using the Force, is a practice. One of responsibility, connection, and choosing the light again and again. That's the Force. Without the mysticism, it's the ethical pull to act not just for ourselves, but for others. And it reminds us that the power to resist injustice doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within and between us. Now, let's talk about the rebels in Star Wars. The Rebel Alliance, also known as the Rebellion. This courageous ragtag coalition that rose up to fight the authoritarian rule of the Galactic Empire. And these rebels, they weren't just soldiers, they were idealists, they were diplomats, they were smugglers and farmers and freedom fighters and everyday people, resisting tyranny. My personal favorite Star Wars rebel is Princess Leia. She was a bold leader, she was strategic, she was diplomatic, and she balanced that diplomacy with rebellion. And she's the heart, I think, of the original trilogy's resistance. But none of the rebels are perfect. They disagree, they stumble, they sometimes fail spectacularly, they're disorganized, at times they're outgunned at others. But what makes them powerful isn't perfection, it's persistence. They keep showing up. They keep believing that even against overwhelming odds, something better is possible. In Star Wars, the Rebel Alliance faces down the Empire with far more firepower, resources, and control. They don't win because they're stronger. They win because they're committed to one another, to the cause, and to the belief that tyranny is not destiny. Humanists, too, have always been a part of rebellions. Sometimes quietly, through the daily refusal to go along with injustice, and sometimes boldly, through world-changing acts of resistance. You won't always find them wearing capes or taking center stage, but they're there. We're there, challenging orthodoxy, confronting oppression, and building new paths grounded in reason, compassion, and courage. So think of Margaret Sanger, who was arrested and detested for her unapologetic advocacy of reproductive rights, even daring to mail birth control pamphlets when it was illegal to do so. She stood not just for health access, but for human dignity and bodily autonomy. Think of Bayard Rustin, the gray-black activist who organized in 1963 the March on Washington while navigating intersecting bigotries of racism and homophobia. He was a quiet architect of justice, living out the deeply humanist ethic of nonviolence and solidarity. The person who brought me to humanism, Kurt Vonnegut. He wielded satire and science fiction like a sword or a lightsaber, exposing the absurdities of war, greed, racism, and cruelty while arguing for us to, damn it, just be kind. And think of Carl Sagan, inviting millions to look up at the stars, not in fear, but in awe, reminding us that we are all made of the same cosmic dust, and that our responsibility to each other is real and urgent because we are all we've got. Think of Sikivu Hutchinson, who confronts racism, sexism, and religious privilege head-on in her call for humanism that centers Black feminism and Black feminist voices and justice for the marginalized. These are not just abstract ideals. Think of the humanist leaders and thinkers who tell stories about grief, joy, justice, and atheism, and who remind us that secular lives are no less meaningful, no less sacred, no less committed to good. Think of the students and young organizers today, fighting for LGBTQ+ rights, for climate change, for racial equality, for the right to learn unfiltered history. They may not all use the word humanist, but many of them live it, choosing ethical action without waiting for supernatural permission. These are our rebels, and I'm sure there's a few of them here today. They resist not with dogma, but again, with dignity. Not with fear, but with fierce, grounded hope. They don't just say, this is wrong, and throw their hands up in the air. They say, we can do better. And then they get to work. Humanist rebellion isn't about tearing down for its own sake. It's about liberating what is possible inside us and around us. It takes imagination. What binds all these efforts together isn't just righteous anger, it's ethical imagination. The belief that the world as it is not the world as it must be. That injustice is not inevitable. That we can build something more humane, more just, more beautiful if we dare to imagine it, and then we work for it, never giving up. Just like the Rebel Alliance, our strength lies in solidarity, not sameness. We don't always agree. Imagine that. We don't have to. What matters is that we show up anyway for one another and for our values and for the future that we are building. That makes us rebels with a cause. But we must be aware of the dark side. In Star Wars, Yoda offers one of the franchise's most haunting lessons when he says, "Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering." It is a line from a fantasy film, but it's also disturbingly accurate, right? It's a map of real human behavior. We see this path unfold again and again in our world. Fear, especially fear of differences, fuels racism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, and transphobia. It convinces people that others are threats rather than neighbors, that others are enemies rather than fellow human beings. And that fear, when stoked by political opportunists, media echo chambers, and even sometimes by religious dogma, that fear, when stoked, it ignites into anger. And that anger becomes a tool. It gets weaponized into laws, into movements, into mobs. It fuels dehumanization, allows people to justify cruelty, and it numbs us to the suffering of others. And when hate becomes normalized, it becomes policy. Bans, rollbacks, walls, book censorship, clinic closures, cultural erasure. The dark side isn't just a metaphor, it's real. It's history repeating itself in modern clothes with a slicker slogan and a more polite press release. And here's where humanism comes in. Not just a philosophy, but an ethical stance. It challenges us to resist not only the systems of injustice around us, but also the temptation to become unjust ourselves in the process. That, my friends, is hard. When we're hurting, when we see harm being done, when we're angry at the state of the world, it's easy to lash out. It's easy to decide that they don't deserve our empathy, that those people are beyond saving, that maybe we should just fight fire with fire. But ethical rebellion asks for something more courageous than that. More courageous than rage. It asks us to fight without becoming what we oppose. It asks us to call people in when we can, not just call them out. To resist with both resolve and compassion. To be fierce, yes, but never forget our shared humanity, even when others do. Because our goal isn't just to win an argument or defeat an opponent. Our goal is to liberate, to heal, to build, to create a better world where the dark side of fear, anger, and hate isn't the loudest voice in the room. So what does it mean to be a rebel with a cause today? It doesn't always mean protesting or leading a movement, though it can. Those are definitely important things. But more often, it looks like a quieter courage. It means telling the truth, even when silence feels safer. It means refusing to look away when someone is being harmed. It means helping them. It means choosing conviction over convenience. To be a rebel today is to build coalitions, not cliques. It's choosing connection over competition. It's reaching across difference, not to erase it, but to unite it, to unite us through shared values and a common vision. Because no single group, no single ideology, and no single identity is going to fix everything alone. We need each other. That's how any real rebellion has ever succeeded. It also means rejecting apathy in favor of ethical action. Not just the big flashy actions, but the small persistent ones. The daily decisions that shape the world just as much as revolutions do. Maybe that looks like volunteering your time to support a cause that aligns with your values, or educating others, whether in a classroom, in a bar, in an ethical society, or in a well-crafted social media post, or supporting secular values, especially when religious privilege threatens equity or inclusion. Organizing for voting rights, organizing for environmental justice, for community care, for truth. We have to organize for truth. You don't need a lightsaber to be a part of this rebellion. You need a conscience that won't let you sit quietly while others suffer. You need a community that lifts you up and holds you accountable. And you need a willingness to act, not once, not perfectly, but persistently. Because the empire, metaphorically speaking, literally is real. It shows up in policies that criminalize compassion, in systems that exploit the vulnerable, in ideologies that prioritize order over justice and power over people. And I'm tired of it. But rebels are real, too. We are already here. We've always been here. In every library defending truth, in every court fighting for equality, in every kitchen cooking for your neighbors, and in every ethical society standing up for social justice. So think, who are the rebels in your life? What does resistance look like in your daily choices? These aren't just rhetorical questions. I want you to reflect on them. Because this talk isn't just about a galaxy far, far away. It's about us. And it's about now. Ethical culture, the tradition that shaped this community, the tradition that continues to shape me, is a humanist movement. It's rooted in ethical action and shared humanity. It is a rebellion, not against people, but against superstition, injustice, and apathy. It's a call to live with intention and integrity together. It demands we uphold the dignity and worth of all people. And the rebellion we've talked about today isn't a relic of the past or just science fiction. The struggle, the rebellion, it continues right now. It lives in state houses where trans rights are under attack, in classrooms where truthful history is being erased, in courtrooms where reproductive freedom is being stripped away. Again, we're not perfect, but we are powerful. And we're rooted in something deeper than despair. We don't fight because we're guaranteed to win. We fight because it's the right thing to do, because every act of courage is a light in someone else's darkness, and the world needs all the light that we can give. So, if you're wondering what comes next, if you're looking for your rebellion, you start here. You join a local cause, you volunteer your time, or you just come back next Sunday. Rebels need community. They need hope. They need trust. They need each other. We just have to remember who we are and then act like it. We must strive to live our values now more than ever. We don't have Jedi using the Force. We don't have lightsabers. But we do carry the light. Every time we act with courage, with compassion, with conviction, we shine a little light into a dark world. So let's go out there and be rebels with a cause, and may the force for good, for justice, and for humanity be with all of you. Thank you.